Good evening. Tonight is first of two public hearings on the budget. It is March the 20th, 2023. Sorry, Ms. Hoadley, I wasn't speaking into the mic, and I know that you always admonish us on that, so the people at home can hear. So I'll do a little better. So as I said, tonight is March 20th, 2023. It is a first of two public hearings. The second one will be on Wednesday and will be at the Millbrook School, also at 6 o'clock. And to start off, Ms. Hastings, would you take the roll of attendance?
Sure. Mr. Richards.
Here.
Ms. Walsh.
Here.
Ms. Higgins. Here. Mr. Cotton.
Here.
Ms. Robinson.
Yeah, here.
Ms. Meeker.
Here.
Mr. Croto.
Here.
So missing is Jonathan Weinberg.
Okay, Mr. Weinberg had let me know that he would not be able to attend.
Okay.
So we have 8 of our 9 members, which is a quorum. With that, Jack or Mr. Dunn, do we have a presentation tonight to summarize our budget before we get into public hearing?
We do.
And I will slide to the side so people can see. Thank you.
I'll get started. So the copy of this presentation is in your Google Drive folder and will be posted online on the budget website. Tonight we will just review the budget goals as it relates to the strategic plan. We will go talk about the work sessions to date. We'll do a budget overview. We will talk about your posted budget, how we came up with that 2.1 million in cuts. And we will do a little tax rate estimation and a history of the tax rate. And then we'll show the school nutrition services budget, just the numbers, and also the estimated federal grants. And then we will talk a little bit about state adequacy, as today I was listening throughout the day to Division 2 Finance, because they need to make a decision by tomorrow at the absolute latest on what they're proposing going forward as it relates to state adequacy. I have information as it relates on what the governor's impact was. I gave you an estimate. I have what those numbers are. And we will, and just a little bit of what I've heard by watching it or listening. And then where the public information can be found, and then public comment. So we'll start off with the goals. Yep.
Sorry, could I just get a clarification? Is the budget that is posted online the budget that we passed on March 8th, or is it the original budget that you proposed?
The original budget.
Okay, is it possible to get the one that we proposed on the 8th posted?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
You want me to jump
Yeah.
in? So, we tried to build as much of the budget around the priorities that were developed in the strategic plan, which we have been using across the district with all of our activities and groups. So, just as a reminder, you'll see throughout the budget the priority number 1, which is around equity. Priority number 2 around curriculum and instruction. For instance, in equity, you'll see the DEIJ position. Priority 2, you'll see some funding for new materials, assessments, along with professional development for our staff. Priority 3 around social emotional learning, and that's all of the materials and supports that we are giving students as we address social emotional learning. Communication, as you know, we talked at the last meeting, there was a PIO in the budget, part-time to be shared with our Career and Technical Center, but that's been an issue that you have talked about for a number of years, and so we'll see that in there. And of course, enhancing communication to our community. Priority number 5 around all of the facilities. I think Matt has been terrific at explaining all of the things that we needed in the budget, including a position to help Matt in terms of the facilities. You'll see that in there, as well as safety, and which is a priority, in the infrastructure systems that we have in the budget to address safety. So we tried to build it around those themes, and we'll continue to do that. As you know, this strategic plan is a 3 to 5 year plan.
Okay. So work sessions to date. This is a list of the work sessions to date, all the ones that are lined through. have been have already been conducted, so we're on work session 10, which is your first public hearing. So budget overview and how we got to where you've got. This is the original proposed budget, expenditure and revenue that was proposed at a 2.44% increase in the expenditures and an increase in revenue of 2.39%. Included in that budget was a list of 2 pages of positions that were either being reduced through attrition, reductions in force, or positions added because of funding running out. These 2 pages of positions are still in this budget based on what you've posted and what we understood. But again, this is for your feedback, these public comment sections, and then you'll meet on the 27th if you wish. But on the 29th, we would hope that you would pass a budget. The contracted services, after that budget, you had voted by majority of the board to eliminate the SRO at Runley. So that came out, and that budget now became this budget, which instead of a 2.44 is a 2.35, and the revenue a 2.29. Then you posted a budget. After discussion at the monthly board meeting, you asked us to put together some solutions as it relates to tax impact options. If you were to cut $675,000 all the way down to cutting $2.8 million, and that shows what the change and the percent would be. The state rate is the state rate, nothing we can do about that, and then a combined rate. You chose the 2.150 rate, which would be a 35-cent increase, or 2.61% on the local, and a combined rate of 3.96 or 58 cents. So what did that mean? That means we did a couple of things trying to get to that 2.15. Part of that rationale was to use some trust funds at the moment to try to get through to see what the state does in anticipation of potential funding increases, because you need to pass a budget before the state will pass its budget, likely in June. So these adjustments included refinancing the tech loan, not transferring money into the technology trust fund, transferring money into the general fund from the technology trust fund to fund this year's equipment, moving the 3 math coaches to Title II as a 1-year only, with this position ending in June of '24. The public information officer would be partially funded by Perkins. The district OT, Abbott Downing preschool teacher, and the DEIJ would be funded with 1-year only money from the Extraordinary Needs Grant. That was the $500,000+ that you received from the state in October and put it away. You would use that to fund those 3 positions. The high school position is a reduction, assuming that the assistant principal is added. And the curriculum coordinator is cut. And then we proposed, in order to make up the gap at this point in time, as we were beginning to go through the budget again, all the positions and making sure we've accounted for everything, we would use the health risk reserve to make up that difference to get to the 2.15 million. So you'd have 709,000 in reductions and alternative revenue or alternative sources of funding of 1.4 million to come to 2.150 million. That gets you to your 2.61 on the local rate, or 35 cents. So this is what your budget wound up coming to be. Your total expenditure increase is 1.39%, and your revenue increase is 1.32%. The estimated tax rate and history. So here is a history of the tax rates for all of the city, county, school, and state education portion. This is listed on the school district, the city of Concord's website. So this goes back to the year 2000. And you can see up in 2023, I have highlighted a rate of $13.77 and $1.44. That's the estimate based on the budget that you've posted. Okay. I'll move on to the impact on this year's the budget you posted. So with the 2.15 million cut, 35-cent increase, or 2.61%, a $300,000 home would be about $105 on the local. The state, again, which we have no control over, would it be estimated to raise $69. So a total impact of $174 based on a $300,000 home. And I use that $300,000 home because that is the assessment letter that was sent out in November by the city. And they referenced 300,000, so I'm going to reference 300,000. I guess that's the new 250. Used that for years. Okay. For the school nutrition services budget, again, that should be self-funded. That was the budget that was proposed the night we talked about food service, which I think was the night you posted. And for the revenue, they offset. And then for the estimated federal grants, we usually budget pretty conservative. We only budget the entitlement grants. And when we do this, because we don't know what those numbers will be, we always budget, we make them flat and then assume we're getting the same amount. That has worked well for the most part in the past. But again, these entitlement grants are estimates. We probably will not know our number until late April. Last year, I think it was as late as July. So there's no guarantee what that is going to be. But we don't include when you approve the budget, we don't include in competitive grants like 21C or McKinney-Vento, ESSER, robotics, because they're competitive grants, they're one-shots, and then they go away. We only include entitlements. And then for state adequacy, so I had done a slide for you based on what was written in the paper that we thought we'd probably get about $2.9 million more. That was the rough estimate. So we've attended two hearings for House Division 2 Finance to speak about building aid, and adequacy was also discussed. And I want to show you what the governor's impact, what's published, of what we would get. So what they continue to talk about, which I didn't understand after the first day, so I went online and found the document from February 28th. They talk about the left side and the right side. So it's not political, it's just literally the left side and the right side of what makes up the adequacy. And if you look at the left side, you have your base, which you see up top there. It says that the current the adequacy proposed for next year was this number. The governor is proposing that go to $4,700. And then for free and reduced aid from 1933 up to 2,500. Special ed aid is the same, and the ELL is the same. And third grade reading looks to be eliminated. What they're trying to do is get everything into a base number, rather than have all these different levers, which the right side is all the different kind of custom grants to either make people whole or other incentives to keep them still whole or get a little bit more money. And you can see on the governor's side, he wants to keep the hold harmless with a phase out, and then the extraordinary needs, which was something new this past year. Everything else would begin to go away, so they're going to stick everything into that left side. And that's been the big debate going back and forth, because in the published list, which I did put in your drive, by the way, of what everybody gets, there's towns that will see nothing over the next biannual. They'll at least maintain what they have. They won't get anything more. For Concord, we would get $1.3 million next year under the governor's proposal, and $1.8 million in the second year of the biannual, for a total of $3.2 million more. So the most of the discussion today was around the adequacy, that I was chiming in on, and they have 12 different gyrations of adequacy that they're moving through. And towards the end of the day, it seemed to be some consensus around this proposal 10, and proposal 10 kept the $4,700 base. Where they're having trouble is trying to figure out, do they take and add a little bit more money on the right side because of towns that are not going to get anything. One of the things they keep referring to is Farmington and Berlin. So more, maybe not as property-rich towns, that kind of thing. So it's going on again tomorrow, but tomorrow is like their hard deadline. They need to move something forward. So, when you look at that, you say, even if it was $4,000 or $4,100 per kid, we may be in a little bit better shape than where we're sitting currently. Just to give you some idea. Again, this is going to be unknown until likely July when it's passed and implemented. Okay? But I did put a link, and this is clickable, to that whole presentation where I extracted this from. That was from the Department of Ed, and that was from February 28th. But it was interesting how they kept seeming to be coming back to the governor's proposal because they could not seem to come to a better way to try to fix it. Because also, if they increase the right side, it might knock some of the entitlements that they get, like hold harmless, might not make them eligible for it. So I'm not here to say I know everything about that adequacy, but it is fascinating to try to get a little bit more into it and see how they're going to make this all work. But we do seem to be in pretty good shape, especially if they keep that base adequacy. Okay? So, future work session schedule. You have, as your board chair said, March 22nd at Millbrook at 6 p.m. That will be recorded and again aired the next day. March 27th is an open session if you choose to use that. And then March 29th, we would hope for you to pass, after 13 work sessions, a budget. All the public information is posted online under budget. I do have an updated slide for you. I think you'll be very excited. Can you pick out what it is?
Mr. Coxwell.
That's right. It's official. All right. And that is all I have, unless you have questions before that.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. When do you expect that the posted budget, the one that we're using as
So
our
this will go
discussion
on in
base,
the
will be
morning.
on?
I will take all the financial stuff and redo that whole Word document, and probably by tomorrow afternoon.
Okay, so sometime within the next 2 days, people
Oh, yeah.
can expect to see it. Very good. Thank you very much. Okay, and we appreciate all the detailed information that you put in there for us since our last meeting. Superintendent, do you have anything before we go into the public hearing portion?
No, I don't. No.
Okay. In that respect, does any board member have anything before we go into public hearing? All right, in that case, then we will go into the public hearing portion of the meeting. I want to make sure that that everyone realizes that the same policies as apply in our public comments apply with regards to the public hearing. We certainly want to hear from everyone, but if you're going to mention anything specifically, please make sure that you are not making any public comment that is disclosing student identifiable information or teacher identifiable information. It's the policy of a board to restrict those comments. And then, other than that, we do ask you to please sign in on the sheet with your name and your address. We ask that you limit your comments to 5 minutes each, although we'll be a little more lenient as far as how tight we time. We're looking at the number of people here for comments. So with that, whoever would like to make the first public comment, please step up and sign in.
Hi,
Hello.
can I sign when I'm done?
You may sign when you're done, but can you please tell us your name and
Oh,
your...
yeah, no, I had planned to
Okay.
kind of to do that, but that's why I thought instead of you standing here staring at me, I thought maybe I'll just sit down and tell you who I am.
Sounds good.
So my name is Dawn Morris, and I teach kindergarten over at Millbrook School, and this year is finishing my 34th year teaching here in the district. So I have only been here, my career started over at Dame School, and I've only been to Dame, to Eastman, to Dame, back to Millbrook. And I've spent those years doing kindergarten, first grade, and 1 year of second grade, and said, no, I like them younger. So, and that's where I will stay. I wanted to be able to come tonight, like for a few reasons. In my time here, I don't rarely, when I finally feel like there's something that's a huge priority that warrants more than just giving my opinion at my school, I feel strongly about being able to kind of come and share my thinking and my reflections of what we all do. And I think I would never presume to be able to say I know what you all do, but I really sometimes can't stress enough over the history of my career here in Concord, the changes in our population and our students are extreme, really extreme, in all avenues, whether it's our diversity, whether it's our parents, whether it's been the trauma, New Americans, special ed, you name it. We would go from at Dame, I would have 24 kids in a kindergarten class, and there maybe was one or two, let me push your button type of kids. And Dame has had its challenging population. The demographics of where Dame is, it's just always had some more challenges with children and families. But I've loved being a part of that. However, the challenge to be able to keep up with all of the needs that have changed, because that one or two kids per classroom has turned into 3, 4, or 5. I have 4 homeless children this year in my kindergarten class, in foster care with trauma and issues that keep me up at night, what some of these children have been through. And my classroom is certainly not alone in any way, shape, or form. And so when wonderful things come to the table, like our math or extra literacy time or support, or there's been, through some of these ESSER funds, there's been occasionally extra hands, like we can get an hour or two sometimes a day of an extra person that kind of comes in the room that can help with the kids. It's just amazing. It's amazing, and it's a game changer. Why? Well, for 34 years, I've heard about the philosophy that Concord's always wanted to have. And one of them was always that every child should have the ability to access the curriculum. And it sounds so well and good. It sounds like, yes, of course, we should all do that. However, when you have a classroom of whatever, 15, 16, 18, 19 children, and there are extreme behaviors, or there's major language barriers, or there's just children who unfortunately are coming to school with so many other baggage and things, it makes it really difficult for them to learn. And so the number of times and the ways that we have to think outside the box is just, I can't even say it's doubled or tripled. It's extreme. It is also the most rewarding. I am not sitting here in any way, shape, or form complaining. I love my job. I don't know what else I would do. I wake up every day dying to be there and to help them. But I also go home every day and every night going, did I get there today? And where am I missing? And how am I missing it? And honestly, a lot of the expectations have changed. When you presented the math coach as an opportunity, you put down all the goals that you wanted for those positions, whether it was to further their development of the knowledge and the understanding of the math intervention so that it could maximize effectively for our students, or to boost us as the teachers, our capacity for last year and for this year, to close the gap, for the understanding of all these skills. So all of those goals were so obtainable with the math coaches and the assistants that the math coaches got in each school. And it was, honestly, it's year 2, and it probably has been one of the most holy cow changes that has happened. For example, what's it look like at Millbrook School? There's coaching of teachers, whether it's individual, whether it's grade level teams that we have, whether it's preparing for the coaching or for the teaching, whether it's supporting assessments, supporting children, teaching children in a small group or one-on-one, really trying to stay on top of, and also working with Chantel on a regular basis and staying on top of our current math program, but yet also trying to find other avenues and ways, because not everybody is going to be successful with one program. And the material management of it all and making it work for math where it is so hands-on and concrete, which it should be at these young ages. But bottom line, what was critical is the collegiality, that we finally were able to sit down and talk with somebody. You would think that, oh yes, you've all got the time. We don't. You don't during the day to just sit down and really hash out what is it going to look like to do module 4. So my class is this makeup and your class is this makeup. How can we best look at how these kids can be successful? Not just introduce them. You wanted to see the data that Millbrook spent a long time putting together, the effects, the positive effects of what this position has provided for the staff and for our students. And it was just inspiring to be able to see so much growth in such a short time that, sure, it makes Concord's data look great, but it makes our kids feel like I can do something. And I can't speak for every kid here in Concord. I can speak for most of them in Millbrook, because at one point or another I've had them, or their parents, or their families. To see these kids who don't always have the self-esteem and the motivation at home to be able to come and feel successful in something, not to just be like, I think I get it, I think I get it. We do that with Title I, and we pour funds into that, and we make sure that those kids, we go out of our way to meet them with all their literacy skills. You hear in the news all the time about, oh, we need to get more science and math and STEM and STEAM and all these things. Well, those things don't just happen without a lot of other interventions. And having had this position for the last couple years is beyond critical. I can say one thing. I know my job, and I love my job, and I do my job well, but I always have something to learn. And when I had the opportunity to work with our math mentor this year, at first I thought, oh, I know math. It's kindergarten, Dawn, get a grip. I've got it figured out. And when I sat and looked at other ways that I could have instructed or taught or reflected with others, 34 years into it, I still have a lot to learn. And I've learned a lot about myself, and I've learned a lot about my students and how to better reach out for help. Because just because someone's either been here 1 year or 30 years doesn't mean we all have it figured out. And that we need to use each other to better our kids. And to lose that position in Millbrook would be devastating. Millbrook is one of the biggest populations of our youngest learners, with some of our most challenging population. And to give gold and kind of take it away, it would be devastating. To me, I'm thrilled to see the importance of, there was funding available for 3 math mentors. But when I looked at some research as to what does it look like, what's a coach versus a mentor? Well, we're calling them a math coach. A mentor is someone that might work with hundreds, 5, 6, 700 people to mentor. An instructional coach doesn't work with that many. It
So,
wouldn't be
Ms.
as
Morris,
effective.
won't hold you to 5 minutes, but I have to hold you, to 8 or 9 minutes.
Okay,
So
my
please wrap it up.
All right, so I'm going to leave you with some of the research. I printed out some research that talks about the collaboration and the need for math tutoring, math coaches as to what we have. And I'm also going to want to leave you with every single classroom teacher at Millbrook School, and our specialist, and our guidance counselor, and our school psychologist, and our special ed. Everyone has written something of the positive and most powerful impact that it's made for them as a teacher or for their students. And so I had my little kindergarten friends help me put it all together, but I wanted to leave that with you, and I truly hope that you would take the time to look through some of those comments. It just...
We appreciate the handouts, because we all have to read those things. And
Yeah,
we can do
well,
that offline,
I guess
so.
bottom line, to be honest with you, taking away the position at Millbrook and just putting it as in a lump sum, or taking it away from any of the schools and just putting it at a lump sum, it would be hurtful. It would be hurtful to our learners. And bottom line, it takes a village to educate a child these days, because we're not just educating them academically. I can
Thank
see
you.
in your thing, but please
Thank
don't
you very
thin our
much.
village.
Thank you very much.
So I'll leave these with you.
Leave them with, yeah, and anybody who wants to email anything in, that is an alternative to coming here and speaking with us tonight, so I'm glad you remind us of that, and so you can also email to the district, the superintendent, make sure that we all get that information that you want to send from anyone. As soon as you finish, Ms. Hoadley, you may come up next then.
Thank you for your time and hearing me.
Thank you.
Feel free to stop by my classroom anytime at Millbrook if you want to see what it, happy to have visitors. Thank you.
Thank you.
I said I wasn't going to do this, but I come bearing good news. When I walked in the door, I had 2 questions for Jack, and I know you can figure out what they are. The first one was, what's the percentage? And the percentage doesn't mean anything unless you know what the base that you're talking about. And then the second thing is, what is the effect on the $1,000 worth of assessment? He answered both questions in a way that made me smile. And I didn't have anything to drink or eat before I got here. I just smiled. Because although I didn't come to every meeting you had, I saw where you pinched, where you could. I saw where you held firm because you said, we've got to do this. And the final bottom line on both of those things is absolutely excellent. But now I'm going to warn you about something. Jack talks about the left side and the right side and increasing adequacy. I've been around so long that I was here when they didn't even give adequacy. Okay, and the first year, I still have not been able to pin down exactly the first year. And if anybody knows what it is, I'd love to know it. I think I might have been president that year, I don't know, but it doesn't matter. I was convinced that when we got that adequacy money, that a major portion of it was going back to the taxpayer. It was not free money growing on trees to bring into the budget sessions and use for all the things, the wish list. And so I'm going to caution you. I hope you're all around in the next year and 2 years when some of this adequacy gets increased. And there will be a great temptation to spend it all. But guess what? You really shouldn't. You need to give some back to the taxpayers because that's what they're saying in the state, that we are unusual because of our other taxing situation. We don't have an income tax. I pay the interest and dividends tax because I'm an old lady and that's the way my money is. But we don't have a sales tax. And so our whole tax structure is one that is different from most states. And therefore, when Jack talks about going out to Nebraska, not gonna let you forget that. That you have to remember that they have a whole different taxing structure. And so the taxing structure we have here is not helpful to the schools except through the adequacy. If the adequacy is increased, you need to come to grips with it again and say, okay, how much is, going to be for the wish list or the things that we really should or could have that would make a difference? But some of it has got to go back to the taxpayer, because long range, they have been paying outrageous kinds of bills. And I can tell you the first thing I did after Jack told me the 35 cents on the $1,000, I looked at my little tax bill, which I just happened to have with me, and did it out longhand because I didn't even bring my phone to calculate it. And it's an amount that's extremely reasonable, extremely reasonable. Now, I know that I'm more affluent than a lot of people, and most people will find it a burden, but I have to congratulate you, every single one of you, because I know that you really, really, really agonized over some of these positions. And sometimes you had to come up with creative ways to solve them or to get it partially solved or whatever. This is not an easy job. This is one of the most difficult parts of being a school board member is January, February, and March. It's almost over. Hang in there. And I don't know how many people you'll have on Wednesday, and I don't know what kind of a real following you've had from the public here. I haven't seen things in the paper. Maybe later on, there will be things. But as one who's been rather close to it, either right here or watching it from afar, you have really struggled and done something in a year that's been as difficult as any. And I think a lot of it is from the fallout from the pandemic. I know that this wasn't the way I intended to spend my last few years in a pandemic, holed up in the house and wearing a mask and doing all those things. And I worry about the kindergarten people. I worry about the middle school people because they've got raging hormones and they don't know what they're doing anyway. And so if they have a pandemic on top of it, they're just, nutsy cuckoo. And then we have the people at high school who are trying to get into college and they're saying, I got the right stuff. So it doesn't matter what grade or level you're talking about. All of these kids have needs, and you have had to look at them and say, where are we going to put our money? What can we hold on to? The federal government was very generous in many ways, but like found money, eventually there's a time when you have to, fish or cut bait. You either have to continue and pay for it or simply cut it. Those were hard decisions. And I know that I sent you a lot of stuff. And I'm almost done because you're almost done. And then I'll just go away and hide until the next budget. And before I go, I'll put my name here. But really, seriously, as a longtime taxpayer, you did a nice job, a really nice job. And give yourself a little quiet pat on the back because this was hard. Yeah, do it. Really do it. But then, as I say, at the same time, remember, she's never satisfied. She's always getting ready to say, don't give all of that extra money that comes here from the state into the schools. There's only one exception, is if your enrollment turns around, and how can we predict when these new homes are going to be built and how many children will be in them? That's an excuse to keep the money here. If there are more kids, the enrollment's higher. But if things stay pretty much the same, you need to caution yourselves not to get extravagant, not to do it all, to make sure that the taxpayers, because they're the other side of the equation. And that's why I've been sending you things, because I don't think you hear enough from them. They complain about it afterwards. But to be perfectly honest, most of these people don't have time to follow it. And some of these people can't figure out how to extract the information from the website. I was on it this afternoon and pretty confused in a few places, but that's okay. I still muddled through and got what I needed, and then got what I needed from right here when I first came in. So congratulations, but don't puff yourself up too much, because if money comes in, you're going to have another problem, and that is how to divide it. Thank you, every one of you.
Thank you, Ms. Hoadley. Appreciate it.
Okay,
We're
I'm
not quite done
I'm
yet.
just going to sign my name. Do I have
Very
to
good.
say where I live?
Well, yes, please. We can fill it in, but we'd like you to, we all know where you live, but yes, please fill in the form in its entirety. So, do we have anyone else who would like to make a public comment?
Just a question.
Yes.
Do we know if there's enough Title II money to put the other two positions back?
Yes.
There is?
Oh,
For a year?
I thought you were going to ask about the math coach, sorry.
Yes,
You
for the
mean
math
two more
coaches.
in addition?
Yeah.
No, we'll just lucky to make those 3.
So we don't currently have any money to do that?
Not based on our projections, no. Because one will go into the current year's money, which will run out next year, and then the 3 would go into the new allocation. That's the
And I gotta speak for some of the other things that we're doing with that money too. You know, we've been working with an HLI on competency-based education, and that's a consultant of which we take out of Title II. New Hampshire Listens out of the university, the ADEQUACY school, we use them. It's a small amount contract with them, but we use Title II for that. There's a number of other areas that we use Title II for in terms of support and training for our staff. So we don't have our new grant yet. We probably won't get it until April or May to get a number. Usually we get a preliminary number. It's usually pretty close, but we won't know that for a while. So I would be really hesitant to try to extract any more money out of there. Otherwise, we lose that momentum. Another good example is restorative justice through place in Boston. Suffolk, thank you. Suffolk University has been providing some support at the high school around the training. And so we have some hours left with them for our training. So I just caution you that, you know, to totally absorb it with the math coaches would really impact all of the other programs and initiatives that we have.
Other questions for either the superintendent or Mr. Dunn? All right. Well, I will close the portion of the budget hearing. Well, like I said earlier, we will have another hearing on Wednesday evening. That will be at the Millbrook School at 6 p.m. And of course, you can always send in emails to the board if you cannot attend those hearings. So, do we have any further business this evening?
No, sir, I don't.
Not seeing any business coming from the administration or from any of the members of the board, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Higgins. Is there a second?
Second?
Seconded by Ms. Robinson. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? All right, we're adjourned. Thank you, everyone.